Today, we're talking about something really specific, a profound shift that so many of us feel after the age of 60. It's this quiet, often unnamed recalibration that can leave you feeling a little adrift. Well, we're going to put a name to it, dig into the science behind it, and most importantly, figure out how to navigate it with real power and a sense of intention. Okay, let's get into it.
Does that sound familiar at all? You know, the big projects are wrapped up, your career might be winding down, the kids are long gone, but instead of this great sense of freedom, there's this strange, expectant tension. It's almost like you're standing in an empty theater waiting for the second act to start, but no one's handed you a script. If you've felt this, I want you to know you are absolutely not alone. This isn't just boredom. It's a recognized and deeply human part of the journey.
So here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll name this hidden truth. Then, we're going to get into the fascinating why behind it, what's happening in the brain. From there, we'll pivot to a really powerful new way of thinking, moving from what we'll call reactive to sovereign. Then we get practical with a step-by-step protocol. We'll zoom out for a bit of wisdom, and finally, we'll close with a simple, but I think pretty powerful challenge.
All right, so let's pull this feeling out into the light. The most important thing to grasp right now is that this sense of waiting isn't a sign that something's wrong with you. Not at all. It's actually a signal that something really important is happening just beneath the surface. It has a name, and believe it or not, it has a purpose.
The technical term for this is the liminal identity shift. Now, that word liminal, it comes from the Latin word for threshold, and that's exactly where you are. You're standing on a threshold between the person you had to be for decades and the person you're about to become. Your brain is in a state of incubation. Think of it like a software update for your identity. It's not an empty void, it's more like a workshop.
And this is the absolute core of it all. You are not lost. That feeling of waiting, it isn't for some external thing like a new hobby or a new project to just magically appear. The waiting is internal. Your brain is literally pausing, waiting for your permission to let go of the old roles, the old programming that served you so well for so long.
So you might be asking, okay, but why does this happen? What's actually going on in my head?
Well, let's unpack the really fascinating mechanics of this great recalibration your brain is going through.
For decades, your life had a pretty clear structure, right? A career, raising a family, responsibilities. Your brain got really good at operating on what you could call reactive purpose. It responded to deadlines, to other people's needs, to problems that needed solving. But now, a lot of that external structure is gone. And this creates something called the structure-agency gap. Your brain, which has been trained like a loyal soldier for 60 years to look for external commands, is now met with silence. That feeling of waiting is your brain scanning the horizon for orders that just aren't coming anymore.
And this really highlights a kind of biological mismatch. For years, as you see on the left, our brains were all about expanding the future, planning, building, achieving. Our prefrontal cortex, the brain's CEO, had really clear targets. But now, our brains wisely start to shift focus. They want to optimize the present. We start seeking internal truth, finding our value in just being, not constantly doing. But this is such a new operating system that our prefrontal cortex can feel like it's just spinning its wheels, desperately looking for a familiar problem to solve.
And there's another layer here, a really important emotional one. We need to talk about something called functional mourning. You see, for so many of us, a huge part of our identity was wrapped up in being the provider, the problem solver, the person everyone else counted on. When that role fades, it's not just a change in your daily schedule, it's the loss of a core part of who you were. That quiet, waiting feeling is partly the echo of that loss. It's a natural and totally necessary grieving process for that version of you that was so essential for so long.
So if you put all of that together, you get this really powerful image. You're not in an empty void, you're in an incubation chamber. It's this protected, necessary space where the next most authentic version of yourself is being formed. Now, our culture screams at us to be busy, so the immediate impulse is to fill this chamber with, well, with anything. New projects, a dozen hobbies, endless social plans. But the hidden truth is, rushing to fill it with busy work only interrupts the critical work your brain is trying to do.
Okay, so we've identified the feeling and we understand the why behind it. Now let's make the pivot. How do we actually move through this threshold with grace and power? This is the core lesson, the fundamental mindset shift for a truly incredible second act.
This is the big leap we're talking about, from reactive purpose to something called sovereign intentionality. For years, our purpose was reactive. We were passengers, always asking, okay, what do I have to do next? Our sense of value was tied to how useful we were to others. The shift is to start asking a completely different question. Who will I be?
In this new mindset, your value isn't something you have to prove through action. It's just an internal, unshakable fact. You go from being a passenger waiting for instructions to being a sovereign witness, observing your own life with intention and authority.
And here it is. This is probably the single most important idea we'll talk about today. That's something you've been waiting for, that vague event or feeling you thought was just around the corner. It's not a what, it's a who. It is the arrival of the next version of yourself, the one that isn't defined by what you do for other people. You've been waiting for you. So, why is this so important? Well, when you embrace this idea of identity sovereignty, the benefits are real and tangible. It drastically cuts down on what we could call purpose-seeking stress, that frantic, anxious feeling that you have to find some new, all-consuming purpose right now. It gets rid of that nagging urgency to perform for others. It helps you build this deep, foundational self-respect that has nothing to do with a job title. And, maybe most crucially, it makes sure that whatever you decide to do next in your life comes from a place of your own internal truth, not someone else's expectations.
Okay, so let's move from the what to the how. It's one thing to understand all this in your head, but it's another thing to actually live it. So this section is all about a practical toolkit, a protocol you can use to actively and consciously navigate this threshold.
So here it is, a 4-step protocol. And I want you to think of these not as chores, but as empowering tools you can use to rebuild your identity on your own terms. We've got the Role Audit, Low-Stakes Observation, a Desire Archive, and the Threshold Ritual. Let's take a quick look at each one. First up, the Role Audit. This is all about consciously and formally letting go. You can literally make a list of the roles that used to define you: manager, provider, family problem solver. Then you formally retire them. You can write it down, or even better, say it out loud. Something like, I am no longer the primary provider, and I'm grateful for that chapter. This sends a really powerful signal to your brain that things have changed. Next is low-stakes observation. This is about retraining your brain to find value in just being. Spend 15 minutes just looking at your garden or sitting in a room in your house without any goal to fix or change anything. Just notice. Third, the Desire Archive. This is not a bucket list of big goals. It's a simple running list of small things you want to do just for you. Maybe it's trying a new coffee shop or reading a particular book. These little wants anchor you in the present. And finally, the Threshold Ritual. This is simple. Every time you walk through a doorway from one room to another, take one conscious breath and tell yourself, I am in transition, and that is a position of power. These tiny habits build the foundation for your new sovereign self.
All right, let's zoom out for a final, really empowering perspective. It's so easy to feel like this period of waiting, this uncertainty, is some kind of weakness or a personal failing. But I'm telling you, the truth is the exact opposite.
You really need to hear this. That feeling of unease is not a bug. It's a feature of a deep and thoughtful life. It is a sign of advanced human intelligence. You see, an unexamined life doesn't pause to ask these tough questions. Your brain is telling you that the old answers just aren't good enough anymore. You are refusing to settle for a shallow second act. You're demanding one that's just as meaningful as the first.
And this brings us to a skill that you already have in abundance. You are a master of transition. Just think about all the massive changes you've successfully navigated over the last 60 years. Technological, cultural, personal. You are an expert at adapting. For all those years, you were busy navigating the changes of the world. Now you're just applying that mastery to the ultimate change, the change of the self. You are uniquely, perfectly equipped for this journey.
And that brings us to our final section. We've explored the what, the why, and the how. Now it's all about taking one small, immediate step to put this powerful idea into practice.
I want to leave you with this question because it really challenges a lifetime of conditioning. We're all taught that productivity is king, that an empty calendar is something to be ashamed of. But what if, for your brain right now, in this specific period of recalibration, doing nothing was the most productive, most healing, most essential task of all? What if that stillness isn't a void to be filled, but the very raw material your brain needs to build what comes next?
Please remember, that feeling of waiting is a sign of your brain's incredibly high standards, not a sign of a stagnant life. If you want to start today, I'd really encourage you to just begin with that Role Audit. Take 5 minutes and just acknowledge the chapters that are now closed. You have earned the right to exist without a reason, to just be. So here's the challenge. Sometime in the next 24 hours, find one single hour on your schedule where you plan to do absolutely nothing productive. And you refuse to feel guilty about it. Just sit, observe, and be present. Because when you finally embrace the nothing, you make room for everything else. audit the roles, anchor the presence, and lead your life with the sovereignty you've earned.